All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Brad Kenny with More Coaching, and I've got an amazing guest today, Garrett Gunderson, who I have known for what, 10, 11 years now?
Yep.
We met way back in the day in Seattle, where I was working for a small company, and Garrett had this amazing program, Freedom Fast Track, right?
Yep. Yep. That's the name of the program.
And Garrett just has an amazing ability to break down the whole concept of money and keep it simple for people. And you just sold this company, right?
Yeah. June of 2021, I sold it.
That's awesome. Well, so the reason I brought you on to this speaking series is because it's all about following your dream. And you did a completely surprising move for me and completely caught my attention. And I've been following you for a while. So really quickly, tell the viewers who you are, what you do, and why it's important.
Well, I'm using entertainment as a way to educate. So I just filmed a comedy special and finished a comedy tour, but I'm also an author. I'm coming out with a book in June that's a sequel to one of my New York Times bestsellers, Killing Sacred Cows. It's called Disrupting Sacred Cows. I just got my children's book published with an amazing co-author, Julia Cook, who sold 3 million copies of children's books, and we have an amazing publisher. So again, like children's books, that's very entertaining, but it's there to educate. And that one's called I Am Money, I Don't Grow on Trees, because a lot of my background is in the money world, but not the traditional sense of getting people to set money aside for retirement or just set their money in the stock market and hope it works out. I'm more about helping people realize they're worth investing in, how to invest in themselves, how to be more efficient with their money, how to create more cash flow in space so that they have more choice in their daily actions and they're not just trading their time for money. And that was a big part of the company that I sold, but I sold it and I still do some licensing deals with them where I show up and speak and do things because I believe in who they are. I just wanted to do less in operations and more in creation. So I'm in an interesting place where I've been creating a lot. A book I've been working on for 5 years. I plan on having into the publisher in the next couple of months. So and I've been working on another book that takes everything comedy and applies it to money. It's called Life After Debt, DEBT.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I was
Great.
working on that for a few hours today, and I'm having a blast doing it. It's challenging to make something that engaging and entertaining the whole way through, but still have some level of like, hey, there's value to get from it. But I'm looking at a whole new way to help people.
That's absolutely amazing. I remember just the energy that you have. It's so, number one, approachable, and the way that you deliver your message is really engaging. I mean, you've got incredible charisma and just a deep desire to help people, and that's one of the reasons why you resonated with me so much, back in the day. And so I'm so glad and really honored to have you here. So thank you again. So let's start off with a really good question. When did you feel that you had found your calling? What happened to bring that sort of realization for you? And how did that change your life?
Look, when I was a teenager, I started a business where I would detail cars, and I won some money for being the Young Entrepreneur of the Year, first for the state or for the rural community, then for the state, then for the SBA. And I thought, all right, what am I going to do with this money? And I wanted to invest it, but I didn't know how to invest. So as I went to college, I started to interview people like bankers or people that were, graduated, but they were in the same fraternity, and I would meet with them and some of my friends' parents. And I eventually got in the financial space because I realized everybody has money, but there's so little instruction that comes with it. Like, what else in the world has so much consequence and so little instruction, and something that can get people into a lot of trouble? And I was interested and fascinated by it. Not just like, I don't love spreadsheets and math, but what I love is the concept of efficiency, the concept of exchange, and the concept of money being a fuel to help you do things that you want to do. A lot of people are confused and think like money is the answer. I think money can make you happy when it comes to the basics in life, but it doesn't make you happier when you get way above and beyond more than what you need. It's kind of up to you. And yet we put that onerous on money. So I really went through a lot of my career, almost a quarter of a century heavily focused on how to help people with their money. And I didn't do retirement plans and assets under management. It was, again, more about the individual and what they could do to expand their means, not just live within it by reducing it. What can they do to add more value and learn what their sole purpose was and use that to serve others and solve problems? So as I went through that, I just got to a point where that was a lot of process for me. I could teach the same things, have a pretty good memory in that, and it wasn't as engaging. And then when I got this taste of comedy, it was like, that was exciting, that was compelling. And when I wrote my first book, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But now, I still, I don't know if I know everything there's to know by any means, but I do feel like I am comfortable to sit down and write and actually enjoy the majority of that process. So I really enjoy like the art of creation, the art of writing, the art of getting up and with a thought in my mind and then having a spontaneous reaction from the crowd that makes them laugh. Or the person that I'm looking to hire right now that watched my comedy special and was like, man, there's some good points you're making about money. I'm like, great. They were entertained, but somehow they're also educated a little bit and they're asking new questions. And hopefully that plants a seed for them to have a little bit better life. So the transformation for me was, first off, in college, trying to figure out what is money and what was I going to do for a career. And then realizing I was fascinated about helping people with that and doing an internship, to then, really doing this hobby called comedy, and then having a manager come up and say, if nobody's done this in the world of money and comedy, I think it's a unique combination. I'm like, I would love to be the person to do that. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. And, it's been a hell of a growth to be able to write a special and film a special that's an hour long, that came from 2 hours of materials edited down, and having this amazing team that built an amazing set and great video. I mean, it's been one hell of a process.
That's amazing. So tell me, and tell the viewers a little bit about all the things that you went through, emotionally, mentally, the obstacles that showed up. How did you handle those? Because a lot of times, people get this inspiration. Maybe they get laid off, or, maybe they do what you did and you went to Italy for a summer and you just realize, God, what do I want to do? Right. And so, like for me, when it happened for me, if someone had told me everything that would have come up on my journey, I would have said, well, maybe I won't do that after all.
Right. It's best not to know about the trials before you go through them. I agree. Because then you do what I call stuff for the future. You're like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? It's going to take so much energy. That's going to be so painful. I like to just, yeah. So I know exactly what you're saying.
So let's focus on the emotional part of it. Okay, how do I get into the right mindset? How do I keep forging ahead when there are going to be days where it's just like, God, I'm not getting anywhere. What am I doing wrong? What can you tell people about that?
So like November 3rd of 2020, I had surgery. And so I'm laid up in bed recovering in a dark room, and I'm like alone with my thoughts. I'm like, what the hell do I think I can be a comedian? Because like at this point, the longest I'd done on stage was 33 minutes at an event that I was speaking at, but they had me do comedy the night before dinner. On a comedy club stage, I'd only done 20 minutes at one time. And I had been in talks with my manager about doing a comedy special, which is at least, I think when we edited it down, it was about 56 minutes. And so as I'm in recovery, I'm just like, how in the hell am I going to do this? And there was a documentary that Judd Apatow did on HBO called The Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling. And so I watch it while I'm sitting there recovering. And the whole time I realized how much uncertainty he always had and the level of like doubt, and yet he went for it anyway. Right. So that moment, I'm like, all right, as soon as I heal up, I'm going to head to Malibu, meet with my manager, and we're going to outline the special. So this is like mid-November. And I go out there, I do his podcast, and after the first day of outlining it. So we have like 40 different bits, and each bit is usually 3 to 5 minutes in comedy. And we have these green cards, yellow cards, and white cards. And if it was green, we're good to go, or it was green, yellow, and red. If it was red, it's like, I don't know if this is going to make it. Yellow needs to be worked on. Green, the joke's already ready. So we write it and we do his podcast. And he announces that I'm like, maybe we should do this on April 15th because the special is called The American Ream. And what other day is a ream like tax day? So he announces not while I'm there. He does like the intro and outro afterwards, and I'm listening to the podcast when it comes out December 1st. He says, and he's got his special coming up called The American Ream on April 15th. And I'm like, oh, damn, this is really real. And so now I've got 4 months, essentially 4 months and 2 weeks to write, to practice, and to perform in the middle of COVID, by the way. So yes, I was able to get on stage like a few times, and I was just telling him, I was like, look, I don't want to be the comedian that goes out to a club every night, waits for hours to get 3 minutes on stage away from my family. So I actually set up that I would do a Zoom 5 days a week, and comedy Zoom can suck so bad because you can't always get the, like you can't tell someone's laughing and there's a delay. But I did it 5 days a week, and I would go for walks every day in my neighborhood and work on my lines, and I would rewrite to make something even funnier because my team wasn't laughing at it anymore. And during that time, I'm like, I'm gonna have 8 cameras on me. We've got an Emmy-winning lighting person. We've got an Emmy-winning executive producer. We've got a director that's got 8 specials on Netflix right now. So I'm like, can I do this? Was still going through my head. And I had to like confront the emotion of doubt and just find my way. And I even had the guy I write with, he and I were getting arguments about how things were going to go and which venue to use and all this kind of stuff. So it was a bit of turbulence, but it was also exciting to be that motivated every single day to get up and perform, to get up and practice, to do a Zoom sometimes where only one person showed up instead of the 5 people that were supposed to show up because of schedules, and do it anyway, and be able to do something and not always get that feedback. And so the night before we're going to film this whole thing, I've got hundreds of people to do the 2 shows. And I'm like, the people who can't make it, I'm going to do a Zoom the night before and rehearse. And I'll invite just a couple people who can't make it that next night for some reason to come into a small room. My director and the camera people are watching my mannerisms. And Brad, I just ate a dick. It was the worst. Oh, it was so bad.
Oh, no.
I'm like in my head, I'm tired, you know, and I'm like telling the jokes, and they're just, people have their like picture up instead of their video. They're on mute. One of my buddies, Walker, comes on, and Walker was on mute. He's got the best laugh, and I can see he's laughing, but I can't hear anything. So I'm like, God. And I'm like, dude, why did you mute? He goes, I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm like, there's never an interruption when someone's laughing and you're a comedian at the joke that you're telling. So it's crazy. The last 10 minutes, some people are like, hey, they Q&A'd me, you know, like friends are like, dude, we're just so proud of you for doing this. And I know it's a lot of work. And then I just had this 10 minutes where I'm in a normal flow. So my manager grabs me and goes, hey, who was the guy at the end? That's who we need to show up tomorrow. And good news is tons of comedians had a terrible rehearsal before. And he starts telling me about the comedians he's represented that had bad rehearsals. These are people that I look up to, I think are amazing. I watch their specials. And so that next morning, I'm like getting acupuncture to be ready for the performance that night. And I just have this moment of clarity, like a spiritual moment that's like, just make the mistakes. The key is just be yourself. And the biggest thing was that whole night, I only said 2 words in 4 hours in my head that I didn't speak out loud. My deal I made with myself is the crowd will hear everything that I say. There's no filter that night. So literally I see my aunt. I'm like, oh, my aunt's here. I peed my pants on her trampoline when I was a little kid because I was worried about World War III. People laughed about it. I'm like, my son just yawned in the middle of my set. Nothing like that when you're filming, you know. So I'm just, but at 10:30 p.m., you know, we start the first show at 6. It's almost 2 hours. There's a quick switch over. So I've been on stage for 3.5 hours of performing. My head said, I'm tired. So I literally stopped in the middle of a joke, walked back, grabbed my water, take a sip, wipe off my forehead with the rag, and I go, it's pretty awesome to have you guys here tonight. Like, it just, you know, it feels like love to share comedy. This is what it means to me. It's something I loved since I was a kid. And then I went back into the jokes. The crowd was with me again. I didn't have that separate conversation, but the night before I had a separate conversation the whole time. Do I need to do my whole set? Why isn't this funny right now? I'm really tired. And that means that I'm not letting people into everything that's going on. And that actually destroys the funny. But it's part of being a comedian is dealing with the demons and being able to be totally present when we're on stage. If you're not present, I don't know how to be funny, you know? So it's like, it's a gift for me to learn how to be a better human even though sometimes my jokes aren't always nice. I mean, they're not mean, but I like how Chappelle says, I'm not saying this to be mean, I'm saying this to be funny, but sometimes what I say is funny is kind of mean,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know that I have anything too mean, but at the same time, that's kind of how I dealt with the emotions. It was like daily work, it was meditation, it was growth, it was forgiving myself, and giving myself a little bit of a opportunity to make mistakes and not have it go perfect. And then that night I had someone laughing so hard that I lost my place, and I said, I don't know where I am, and my manager yells out where I was, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm there, and then the whole crowd laughs because I wasn't stressed about making a mistake. I know we could edit,
right.
and I think that sometimes, I don't know if you've ever been to a performance where something didn't go according to plan. A lot of times that's the most memorable piece.
Yeah,
That's the part
exactly.
that's memorable,
Yeah,
especially when the person handles it well and just
yeah,
lets you in
yeah,
instead of like,
exactly.
pretends nothing's happening and we know something's happening.
I love that. So what I'm hearing you say is, number one, have a clear mind, get into the right mindset, be present for what's going on, and be real.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome because, so often we get caught up in I have to look perfect. I was actually doing an interview and there was some dogs outside and they were barking, and I was concerned that they were going to get into a fight and their dog was going to get injured, and having a dog, that just is that's actually traumatic for me to have a dog get injured because my dog's been attacked. And so I got up and I asked the people to bring their dogs under control, and then I came back in and I asked the guy, I said, do you mind if we redo this? And he goes, dude, just let it go. It doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just keep rolling. And I said, you know what? You're right. It doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just keep going. And people can understand that life will happen regardless of whether you think you've got control over it or not. And just roll with it.
Yeah.
So I love that you were able to just to let the whole idea that it's got to be perfect, let it go and just have fun.
Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome. All right. Well, let me ask you this, because we've talked about you finding your calling and what you do. Tell me a little bit about who was your biggest influence on you. Did they ever talk to you about pursuing your dream? But let's talk about who was your biggest influence in your life.
Probably my grandpa, on my mom's side. He owned this well, he was a coal miner, but on the side he had two kind of entrepreneurial ventures. One was he was in a sorry, speaking of dogs.
Speaking of dogs, right?
There's mine. Someone just came to the door, which is probably one of my kids, and so my dog's just barking away, so yeah, my grandpa though had this entrepreneurial side to him, right? He was really, like, he played the accordion in a band and they'd go travel for the weekends and play, weddings and all this stuff. But he also had a TV repair shop. He was in a really small community, and I used to go ride around with him and see people would like pay him, but they'd also like give him some tamales that were homemade or what. And I was like, this is really cool. And then he'd win like Community Person of the Year awards. And so when I first was in college and going to graduate, I had all these job offers. And I'd already been in the financial service business, kind of doing my own thing. It was initially an internship, but I was already making a decent amount with my own business inside of that framework. But I get all these job offers. So he's like, you should take one of these job offers. And I'm like, yeah, but I like what I'm kind of doing. And I didn't want to disappoint him. So I was kind of tortured during that time to make this decision. And part of his philosophy is, look, his dad, who was an entrepreneur, wasn't making ends meet, had to leave his mom, and who was pregnant with his sister, to come to America to eventually get a more stable job, which happened to be a coal miner. And then it took him 7 years to get her to come over. 7 years, right? That's a pretty substantial amount of time. So he's like, man, if you don't have a security, then you might be separated from your family, or it could be really difficult. But then I remember I took on this professor as a client that used to manage a bunch of money before he became a professor. That was like his pay it forward, philanthropic kind of thing. And I made a lot of money from it. So I showed my grandpa, and I remember he just like grabbed my shoulder and got teary-eyed, and he was like, just proud of me, because it wasn't that he didn't want me to pursue what was great for me. He was worried that I would be in a bad situation. And when he saw that it was okay, he was the one that was like, he was actually my first client. As soon as he found out I was doing an internship, he's like, let's sit down. You need to help me out. I don't know what I'm doing here. Right. And so he came to all my baseball games when I was a kid. He got me into guitar. I played guitar with his, his guitarist was my guitar teacher. So he just had a massive influence on me, just always was interested in what I was doing, always so good to me. And even though there was that one moment, right, where he's worried, he still supported through it. And he's still like, there was one time where I needed some money for my business and he gave me money for the business and lent it to me till I could pay him back. So yeah, he was awesome.
That's amazing. How important
Let's
is
see if
it?
I'm gonna go to the door and talk to you while we're talking here. So
Okay, cool. All right. So,
I think it's probably my son locked out there or something.
how old is your son?
I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. So,
Okay.
but no, that's just a package that I don't need to get. So we're good.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned having somebody who's been a real big influence in your life. What is the importance of having a mentor when somebody starts to feel like they really want to start pursuing a dream that they've been having?
I think you want to have a mentor at all times, because even if you don't have a dream in the moment, a mentor can ask you questions to help you develop that dream. If you have one, a mentor can help you, because sometimes when you have a dream, it's easy to get caught up in the minutia or in the doubt or get frustrated, and to have someone that can be outside of that emotion so they can think clearly and ask you questions you don't know how to ask of yourself can be instrumental to get to the other side of it. And so I always like having outside perspective in my life, because I'd rather learn at an accelerated rate or not get stuck in something for a longer period of time than necessary. And so I've just had plenty of mentors in my life that way over time.
Are you currently mentoring anyone?
Well, I mean, I do these immersions where people will spend a day with me. And so I'll spend that day with them and then just kind of get the right people for them along the way. When I had Wealth Factory, I was doing a lot of mentoring, back then. So right now, I don't have like people that I'm mentoring on an ongoing basis. It's more on like a case by case basis. So partially just because I'm in the creation phase. So it's really hard to for me to stay, true to that over time.
Okay. Well, let me ask you that, because you seem to have a really curious mind, and you ask a lot of questions. How do you define success, and what would you tell somebody who is looking to start their own dream, their own company, travel the world, ask somebody out that they've never asked out before, because that's been their dream? Because we can all have whatever kind of dreams and multiple dreams, but how would you define success, and what would you advise people on their journey?
Look, most people, success gets defined for them, unfortunately, by well-intentioned preachers, teachers, family, or friends, or by society. That society's definition is always more, bigger, better, faster. It's usually about some outcome like an award. But to me, success is when you can find the win in your life on a daily basis. It's when the win is in the work. It's when you enjoy the process along the way. It's when you design a game that's worth playing. That's success. When we are trying to get somewhere to validate our success, that's not success. That's the opposite. That's sacrifice. And sacrifice, unfortunately, has been touted as something that's required to be successful, but it's not. Sacrifice becomes a culprit that removes the joy out of life, because we think one day, someday, this will all be worth it. And we give of ourselves at the expense of our happiness, at the expense of our joy, at the expense of fulfillment, because we think at the end of the road, it's all going to work out. But it doesn't, because now we become those shitty habits that degraded who we are. So to me, when you have a vision that's so compelling that you could dedicate a life to it, you've succeeded. And as long as you stay in that game, you might have issues along the way, mistakes, temporary setbacks, but as long as you're saying, I've created a life I don't want to retire from, you've won.
So number one, I just want to share with you that the energy you just showed from that particular question was absolutely amazing. Tell me a little bit about why that gets you so fired up.
This is the topic that I feel like I've been most uniquely gifted in, that the world has not seen very clearly. Like if you look up sacrifice, you'll find the word succeed almost every time following it. And so I wrote this one-man show keynote that's all around this concept. I'm the book that I think will be the best book I've ever written is around this concept. The way that I've lived my life when I'm living totally dialed in is when I'm living and adhering to this concept. And I feel like there's just not enough of it out there. I think that, there's people talking about, oh, hey, Will Smith won the Oscar and then had this terrible thing happen just before on the greatest night of his life. I'm like, winning the Oscar shouldn't be the greatest night of your life. The work that you love along the way is a great life. As soon as we're trying to get somewhere, like Napoleon Bonaparte said, his life changed when he found out people would die for a blue ribbon. People are looking for acknowledgement, recognition, and validation through an external thing that means nothing. It's only a social agreement. And when we try to prove something to someone else, when we try, that may motivate us, but then we get there and we feel let down because it's like, okay, then what? Now what? Why? And I'm passionate about it because I've seen the pain in the world when people don't find a way to win. And I think a lot of the reason is because they won't process their pain and face it. And that unhealed trauma, we try to use these distractions like trophies or acknowledgement or awards to heal from that. But the only way to heal from that is loving ourselves, forgiving ourselves, and doing some internal work. And that's part of what it takes to live a life that you love. And it doesn't mean everything goes according to plan or that you don't still make the mistakes along the way. I think that life is about wins and lessons, and the wins, just recognize we've already won because we're here, we're breathing, we're alive, and we have a purpose in us if we're willing to accept and acknowledge it. But a lot of people are looking for someone else to tell them what to do. But if someone else tells you what to do and you think it'll make you happy, it won't make you happy unless you're just lucky. If you want to be happy, you got to find that within yourself.
Yeah. See, happiness is a choice in my belief, because you can find happiness in anything. There's nothing that you can't find happiness. And it's like you said, these people have these amazing moments in life, like winning an Oscar or winning the Super Bowl or going to the moon. And then the crash after that is like, it's the achievement is so short-lived. And it's like you said, it's the work. It's find the joy and the happiness in the work that you're doing. And then everything else is like, yeah, it's nice, but that's not why I did it.
Right, like I don't have this book I'm working on, Life After Debt. I don't have a publisher for it yet. I'm still kind of working on the book proposal. There's no urgency to get it done because I have other books that are coming out. But I just enjoy the hell out of working on it. I just really love the process. I get excited when something comes together inside of the book. And so like that's a game worth playing for me. That's a game worth winning. Like going to Italy, that was a game worth playing. Like, okay, we're going to spend we're going to spend a couple months in Italy. From a coal miner's son. My grandfathers were both coal miners. My great grandfather was a coal miner. Leisure like that wasn't part of our DNA. So it wasn't just making the trip and spending the money. It was having the mindset to make the trip and spending the money that had to be totally transformed, which then transformed my life. I came home. I'll just show you. I came home. And I'm from Utah. I mean, I didn't drink coffee. You're from Seattle, or you lived in Seattle, so you drank. But like I came home, I was like, I'm getting a badass espresso machine. I'm gonna take barista courses because it's a hobby that I enjoy, not because I'm gonna make money from it, just because it's something that speaks to the inner artist in me. I came home, started to fly fish because I live here in Utah, because I'm like, I'm gonna take time to myself. It isn't just about only doing things for money, it's about doing things for enjoyment. And I do things that make me money and I enjoy, but I also do things that don't make me any money and I truly enjoy. I became a whiskey sommelier. I went and got my level 1 certification. And I take people through whiskey tastings sometimes when they come up, like, because that's all just the essence and enjoyment of life, stuff that I don't want to wait till I'm 65 to finally enjoy. That notion of retirement, I think, is a silly notion. hey, trade your time for money so that one day, someday you can stop working and doing the things that you hate. But if you do the things you hate now, then one day you can do the things you love when you're too old to do them. I'm not going to go get crunked up in the club when I'm 85. You know, I can barely do that now, and I'm only 43. And I sound old because I said crunk. You know what I'm saying? That's probably not even a word anymore. Like
Probably not.
That's for
Yeah.
me listening to Outkast 20 years ago.
Yeah, 50 Cent and Outkast.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we're at the end. So I just want to do one last question. And then after that, if you want to put out any kind of announcement or an upcoming special, or if you want to, promote your books, by all means, please do that. And then if you want to send me all of the links for how people can find you or your books or anything, please do that. So when I post the interview, people will have just the quickest and easiest access to you.
Cool.
Okay. So last question is, why is it important to have dreams and goals?
I just saw Dave Chappelle this week, and one of the things he said was, he talked about the reason that we were there to watch him is because we were part of his dream, and he had this dream, and here is 17,000 people watching him. Everything he said, that's the thing that hit me, is like, if you don't have your dream, you're just going to be in someone else's dream, and it might be a nightmare for you because it might not really speak to who you are. And goals are fine because those are like stepping stones to the dream. But start with the dream without worry about time, money, or ability. Those three things are limiting factors that diminish a dream, because you think about, what do I have now versus who could I be to get to there, and who will help me along the way. So a dream gives you a purpose to get up in the morning. It gives you an excitement. It's kind of like as simple as when my wife and I have a trip on the books, we're excited and enjoying the trip before we've even gone on it. Right.
Oh, so awesome.
Yeah. So we always make sure we have a trip on the books. We have one coming up to Chicago next week and going to a concert. So we already get to enjoy that before we're there. And so that's the same thing. Like when we have a dream, then we have something to look forward to, but that we could work on starting today. And that's the unique balance, something to be excited about in the future that informs your actions today. Not just something that's out there that you don't enjoy today, but something that's out there that changes how you behave now. So I think that's the key.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love that you shared that, because so far you're the only one that shared that. And what would you say to somebody who either says they don't have any dreams or they're afraid to dream?
Yeah, they're afraid to dream because of past experience, pain, loss, frustration, environment, what people have said, childhood issues that they haven't dealt with. I think that you got to find the way to love yourself. And we don't really have a really clear roadmap for how to do that. I've been able to do that through MDMA therapy. I've been able to do that through, great individuals in my life that are so gifted, like this woman, Terry Cochran. So I've worked with people to discover that it wasn't just something I was naturally good at. And I went back to moments of my life when I was 3 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, and reprogram my brain. I went to a thing called 40 Years of Zen to figure a lot of this stuff out. But the key is I was willing to invest in myself. And to have a dream, you have to invest in yourself in order to uncover that dream. It's so easy to invest in other people, then blame them when it doesn't work out. When we invest in ourselves, we have no one else to blame. We have to take responsibility.
Right.
That's scary sometimes.
It really is.
It's not going to go according to plan. There'll be ebbs and flows. Just don't judge yourself by the highs and the lows. Stay into what you're capable of today, what lessons you learn along the way, and then just celebrate the wins.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for that. I know that's going to really resonate with some people. So thank you for that. All right. So here's your opportunity. Plug anything you want to plug, books, shows, anything.
Yeah, if you go to GarrettGunderson.com, 2 R's, 2 T's, GARRETT, GarrettGunderson.com. You can check some things out. I would recommend taking the quiz. You can do /quiz or scroll to the bottom of the page. But the quiz is, what are the 4 money personas are you? Once you know how to make more informed decisions and how to operate with the other money personas, and what moves you into a shadow persona and what allows you to use your winning persona. it's going to predict your financial results, and it'll help you make better results once you understand that. So I would definitely check out the quiz. There's no charge to it. You give us your information. We stay in touch with you gently every now and again, not very often, and maybe like once a year, try to sell you something. So that's
Okay, good. Yeah, I think we get to be very upfront about, hey, if you're going to join my email list, eventually I'm going to try and sell you something.
yeah. We haven't done that yet from that website, but that's not saying we won't.
Well, I mean, we get to be compensated for sharing our gifts with people that help them make their lives
Yeah.
easier and happier.
All right, man. Well, it's good to catch up with you.
Really good to talk with you, Garrett. Thank you so much again. Is there anything else you want to say something into, or are you good?
No, I'm gonna go pick up my son from school. How about that? That's the next action for the day.
That sounds awesome, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate
Yeah.
you being here.
All right. Have a good
All
one.
right, take care.
Later.